This one's still in college that can't even let the Caitlin Clark name come out of her mouth. I mean, good grief. It's wild.
Have you listened to Juju Watkins' recent remarks regarding the expansion of the WNBA? Something doesn't stack up, even though she's giving A'ja Wilson all the credit. The data are telling a different narrative, and basketball fans are talking about it. Watkins recently discussed the WNBA's development and the players who paved the way in an interview with Forbes. Although many may attribute the league's greater prominence to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Watkins gave credit to her idol, reigning MVP A'ja Wilson. Why is Watkins disregarding the enormous influence Caitlin Clark has had on women's basketball? You won't believe what we discovered when we dissect the true causes of the WNBA's recent rise in popularity. Juju Watkins is who? Let's dissect it. As a rookie at USC, Watkins is dominating the scoreboard with an astounding 27 points per game on average. Do you think that's possible? Not only is she talented, but she's also causing a stir in the collegiate basketball community. Juju Watkins has, of course, what appears to be an outstanding college participant. On the basketball side of things, I'm not critical. She averaged 27 last season, but I believe she's currently at 21.7. That's impressive, I must say. Performs for USC. This is where things start to get interesting, though. Forbes recently offered Watkins a large nil deal. Indeed, she is already making significant strides off the court, even though she isn't yet a member of the WNBA. Watkins is obviously a rising star, and people are paying attention. However, it would be inaccurate to claim that her potential in basketball isn't practically endless. Juju Watkins has incredible potential and could rank among the greatest women's basketball players of all time. You may be wondering if this is just another tale of a gifted young athlete. There's more to this, though, so wait. Watkins made some unexpected remarks regarding the WNBA's expansion in her Forbes interview. It's likely that you assumed she had brought up Caitlin Clark. Although Clark has been in the headlines a lot lately, it isn't what actually happened. She made no mention of Caitlin Clark, that she's an excellent player, etc. The analogies are fantastic, I must say. She is someone I greatly admire, nothing. Once more, here we go. Watkins instead gave her idol, A'ja Wilson, full credit. Watkins made it apparent that she was a huge fan of A'ja Wilson, who, in her opinion, is crucial to the league's success. Therefore, I'm more of a player than a team guy. I'm a huge fan of A'ja, but I also adore my LA Sparks because they're from LA. Her dominance on the court alone is truly motivating. She is an excellent player. Since they are from the same era, Clark cannot be Juju Watkins' idol. Therefore, it is acceptable for A'ja Wilson to be hers instead, but not exactly in charge of the WNBA's expansion. However, the truth is that it doesn't really matter who you're a fan of. And I don't believe Juju Watkins is necessarily admiring someone like A'ja Wilson or Caitlin Clark. Just saying, I understand. Juju Watkins' high school years were Caitlin Clark's high point. Once more, though, Juju Watkins remained Juju Watkins at that point. So let's clarify this. One of the most popular names in college basketball is Juju Watkins, is blaming A'ja Wilson for the WNBA's expansion. No mention of Caitlin Clark or the other players who are in the news. In Watkins' reality, Clark seems to be non-existent. Watkins did not note that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese both have gained widespread recognition because to their intense competition and influence on women's basketball. Is Wilson really to blame for the WNBA's recent rise in popularity, you ask? The answer is definitely no. Does Watkins have a point here, or is she missing anything important? We have some shocking statistics that give a completely different picture of who is genuinely responsible for the rise in interest in women's basketball. Because there isn't a universe in which she is more valuable than Caitlin Clark in terms of popularity and appeal. It's far from it. The ballpark isn't even where it is. The planets are not the same. Not to be disrespectful either. That is solely dependent on the measurements, figures, attendance, ratings, and any other manner that any of these things may be measured. But let's take a moment to consider this before we get into those statistics. Why would? Does Watkins disregard Clark's influence? Is it only that she loves Wilson so much? Or is there another event taking place here? And with rising players like Watkins about to join the league, what does this portend for women's basketball going forward? So let's have a serious conversation. Are you certain who is generating interest in women's basketball? Rethink your thought. Here are some viewership figures that will challenge your preconceived notions about the WNBA's level of popularity. Let's begin with the Las Vegas Aces and Aja Wilson in the 2023 WNBA Finals. Not a single million people watched any of the 2023 championship games, with a decisive game seeing an average viewership peak of 889,000. Have you heard that? These games should be attracting huge crowds, wouldn't they? Be prepared, though, as not a single game reached the 1 million viewer milestone. Is it not unbelievable? Unexpectedly, few people watched the highest rated game, which only had 889,000 viewers. But wait, it gets worse. In addition, I noticed that this year's Las Vegas Aces games featuring Aja Wilson drew fewer than 500,000 spectators. What? A few Aces games throughout the regular season failed to get in more over 500,000 viewers. Less than half of what was accomplished in the finals. I know what you're thinking, but perhaps that's simply typical of WNBA ratings. Hold on to your seat, because we are about to alter that story. Now let's discuss Caitlin Clark. Do you recall that the WNBA finals failed to get 1 million viewers? In fact, I believe Caitlin Clark made an average of 1.14 million or that kind of thing. Additionally, the ratings increased as the games progressed. Yes, exactly. The average viewership for Clark's WNBA games is 1.14 million. Yes, a rookie is routinely outperforming the largest platform in the WNBA. We're not finished yet, though. Clark's stats are extremely high throughout the playoffs. At her first round game, 2.54 million people watched. That is nearly 3 times as much as the WNBA Finals brought in. It's far from it. She drew 2.54 million in the first round of the playoffs. Come on, what are we doing in this place? What does all of this mean then? It implies that Caitlin Clark is more than merely well-liked. She is a ratings viewership for her games regularly surpasses that of the WNBA Finals. Furthermore, we're not discussing narrow margins here. We are discussing the possibility of millions of people watching Clark play. Do you recall Juju Watkins' statement that Aja Wilson was the driving force behind the WNBA's expansion? These figures paint a totally different picture. In terms of viewing, it is evident that Clark is the one making a difference. She hasn't changed anything in women's basketball. In ratings, gate money, popularity, and attendance. No, it didn't occur. This is where things start to get interesting, though. What does it mean for the WNBA's future if Clark is already achieving these types of numbers? Not only do these figures contradict Watkins' assertions, they totally change the narrative about who is actually generating interest in women's basketball. Aja Wilson isn't even in the top 3 on lists of those who support women's basketball, by the way. The next time someone tries to assign blame for the WNBA's expansion, keep these statistics in mind, because ratings don't lie in the sports world. Additionally, they are currently sharing a narrative that some WNBA players may not be prepared to hear. Women's basketball is changing quickly, but discussions regarding Caitlin Clark are being sparked by a widening rift inside the WNBA. Some black athletes, especially those who haven't joined the league yet, appear to be ignoring Clark. Competitiveness isn't the only factor. What is actually taking place in the background? We're actually going to do this. Once more, what we're doing is that. Another player. This one is a college student. They are unable to even allow her to mention Caitlin Clark. Good grief, I mean, it's crazy. Recall that throughout her interview with Forbes, Juju Watkins made no mention of Clark. It appears that she is not alone in her silence over Clark's impact. Watkins, a huge supporter of Aja Wilson, responded to a question regarding who should be held accountable for the WNBA's recent success. Her dominance on the court alone is truly motivating. This is where things start to get interesting, though. Some players are hesitant to give Clark any credit for the WNBA's expansion, which appears to be a trend in the league. And it's undoubtedly concerning that Juju Watkins is displaying the same mindset. Now, you may be asking yourself, is there something more going on here, or is this just healthy competition? Some claim it's jealousy, and to be honest, it's quite clear. Here's another perspective to think about, though. Perhaps this hesitation to bring up Clark goes beyond individual sentiments. Is it a tactic to maintain attention on current WNBA players? Or maybe Juju thinks she can eventually match Caitlin Clark's success, which is definitely not the case. For 1 millisecond only, Clark's popularity isn't solely due to her skill as a basketball player. She is changing how people think. Watch the women's match. She is attracting spectators who had never previously given women's basketball a second look because of her captivating style of play.